We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to Zencaster.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello, listeners, and welcome to Sisters Assembled Deadpool and Wolverine edition, because we are both fresh off our screenings of Deadpool and Wolverine, which means we will also give a spoiler warning in the show notes. But if you have not yet seen the film, go see it. One, because it's worth it, and two, because we're going to be talking all kinds of fun spoilers today. So make sure you see the film before you come back and listen to our episode. Otherwise, you're going to know what happens before you see the film, and that's no fun. So with our spoiler warning out of the way, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to break it up into a few different episodes coming up in the next few weeks, but today is going to be just fresh, off-the-cuff reactions. So without further ado, Katie, dive into it, because I know there is a lot to talk about.
There's so much to talk about, and I know you're going to be like, Katie, give your overall reactions. But my overall reactions is one word, and that is Gambit. Because I have waited, and everybody who's listening to this specifically in headphones, I am so sorry, but I have waited for this man to show up on screen. I wore my Gambit shirt to the showing because I was hopeful. I was so hopeful. And when he showed up, I was like, oh my God. And did Channing Tatum look absolutely amazing in a very comic book accurate suit up, or I don't really know if you want to call it like a suit, because it's kind of like a mix between regular wear and a suit. But oh my God, the cars, the staff, the fighting, the accent, I can't. Like, it made me kind of sad because 10 years ago, I think it would have been even more iconic for Channing to have played the role full time and like actually been a part of the Fox universe when it was happening. So I'm kind of sad about that, because it's like that little taste of what we never got. But at the same time, it's that taste of what we never got. And it was absolutely amazing.
I mean, Channing Tatum ate and left no crumbs. He said, "This is my 15 minutes of my dream role.
Exactly.
And I'm going to leave nothing on the table.
Yes.
I'm going to show everybody that they screwed me over 10 years ago, and this is what they could have got." Like, you know how they have that thing like, no, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned? Hell hath no fury like a Channing Tatum who didn't get to play Gambit, because he came and he said, haha, this is your loss. And it was magnificent.
He murdered the 15 minutes he got in this movie. Like, absolutely. I was on the floor. I was like, give me Rogue now. Put those two on the screen together. Give me everything. Give me a movie. I don't care that Channing Tatum's like 40 now. I don't care. I literally don't care. Give him his movie that he was owed 10 years ago. He's proven that he can do this role 100%. And I screamed. It was one of those moments I wasn't proud of in a theater that wasn't full, because I went to a very early showing, like a 5:00 showing. So obviously it was, not necessarily full because people can't make a 5:00 showing, but there were more people than most other movies I've gone to at 5:00. And I was one of few that like really reacted. And so I wasn't exactly proud of the over the top reaction I had because I was probably the closest to the front and then screamed. So I have to say, I'm sorry if you were in my theater, but at the same time, like, I don't care. I was like, I came into this movie with a Gambit shirt. Y'all know what I was looking for.
Yeah. I mean, that was so good. Like, and we'll talk about the other cameos. We will, I promise. But I have to say, like, he came, especially as someone who, like, a lot of the other cameos were folks who are coming back to basically pay homage to roles that, you know, kind of got forgotten because the MCU took over Marvel IP, rightfully so.
Well, and that was the whole point, right? Like, that was the joke that was kind of ongoing.
Exactly. And so for him to come in as the only person who really had never played the character before and to absolutely own every single scene he was in, I mean, even like the fight scenes, like he was just owning that. And I was like, oh my God, this is like it was ripped out of X-Men 97 or the original animated series. Like, it was so good that I was like, I've literally watched him come out of this series and be birthed into live action. And it was magnificent. It was like 12 out of 10 perfect.
No, it really was. And I know, to your point, like, there were other cameos. We know the ones that we had known going into the movie, but I think obviously that one took the cake. And while that was one that we actually accidentally forgot in our cameo episode, ironically of all, but then we corrected in our predictions episode, I'm pretty sure we were both like, yes, for sure. Like, this is something Ryan would do. He would bring this man in to finally play a role he never got to play. Don't forget, when Ryan came in to play Deadpool before Deadpool the movie, it was right around this time too, guys. Like, this was all going on early 2010s. These discussions, these movies, all of that. So, like, there's no way that there wasn't a lot of talk when he was sitting there. What was that? X-Men Origins Wolverine, I think, is what he made his debut.
Also,
like,
I think has a Gambit, a very different Gambit.
It does.
Is that the one? Yeah.
Yes. But like, there couldn't have been no way that these conversations were somewhere having been made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So we knew it had to happen. But I said to T, honestly, I went into the movie and yes, I knew like there'd be moments leading up to things where I was like, cameos are going to happen here. Like, someone's going to come. Yeah, it has to. But I totally forgot every single person we talked about. I could not remember who we said could possibly make a cameo in this movie. Totally out of my mind. And so when not even him, when the card came out, I was like, oh my God. And funny enough, my boyfriend was like, it's Gambit. Like, I didn't know. Like,
I was like, Spidey senses weren't going off. Like,
I was like, oh no, I knew. Like, I felt that in my bones. Like, I knew. And like the card, I was like, yes, I know that's Gambit. Like, of course I know that. Like, we named our dog after him for a reason. But like, oh my God, I could go on forever. So cut me off. But oh, my favorite cameo. My favorite.
Oh, I mean, I'm not a Gambit girly to the level you are. I like the character. I know he is your man. So I'm not even going to pretend to be at the same level you are. But I have to say that was also my favorite cameo. Like I said, for him to come in having never played the character and show exactly why he should have been given that opportunity, and it was so missed. I mean, he took it, he ran with it, he owned it. We're on the cameo train. We might as well continue before we dive into the actual plot of the film because they're just sprinkled everywhere and there's so much to talk about. So let's focus on that scene of kind of rebels within the void, I guess you can call them. So the first one who walks in, we definitely called, but Jennifer Garner as Elektra, absolutely owning it. I also thought it was hilarious that she was the one driving the minivan because she's such a mom in real life. And so, like, for her to be driving the minivan as Elektra and then also just absolutely ripping through people, I just was like, this is everything I didn't know I needed. Like, I don't even know that I've seen the original Daredevil.
I was going to say, I don't think I have either. So, like, I love her as Elektra, but I'm like, I don't think I've actually seen you as Elektra other than, like, clips.
Yeah, like, I don't think I've seen the full film of her, like, in her younger days, absolutely just, like, playing the character full stop when she was, I don't want to say in her prime because she's not out of her prime, but, like, when she was younger. And, like, now to see her come back and just continue to own and also Also, the Daredevil joke was
Stop it
hilarious.
because I was dying.
Oh my god, that whole scene with like the meta jokes, I was like, you know what, Ryan Reynolds, I love you. Like your sense of humor is so good. It's you get it. Like you are such a fan that you know what the fans want, and it's like with the cameos, you run the risk of it being really gratuitous and just dumb, like to the point where they're overstuffing. But I think they did such a good job of like making it fun and funny and interesting, but at the same time, like they were meaningful. And I know that's what one of the execs was saying. Like, we didn't just do it just to do it, we did it with reason and intention. And I think that really came through in all of the cameos that they had because I didn't feel like it was just, oh, fan service. And I think part of that is because Ryan is such a fan. He knows what that line is between like, I'm just doing this because that's what everybody wants to see. And like, I'm doing this because it has a reason. And this makes it a meaningful experience for both the actor to come back, but then also for the fans who enjoyed them in these roles to see them without making it dumb.
Yeah, I agree. And I really liked her coming back. I
Yeah.
thought it was pretty cool. And like I said, I probably haven't seen her in her actual role when she played it, but I thought it was really well done. I would have kind of liked to see Daredevil come. I was hoping a little bit when they said the last person, because again, my brain went blank, guys. Like I wasn't thinking. So obviously we knew X-23 had been confirmed to be in it. I wasn't thinking this was where. And so I was like, oh my God, it's Daredevil. And then obviously it wasn't. And then I was like, well, that makes sense. But then they made the reference to, he died. Like he didn't make it. And so I was like, okay, he was there at some point. So I'm fine with that. But yeah, I loved her. Then Blade walked in. He probably had the coolest entrance. I mean, I liked Gambit's because I knew it was Gambit before he walked through. And if you're any X-Men person or you like the character or whatever, you all would have gotten that immediately. But Blade's entrance, I can't explain it. I don't know if it was the music or what. I was like, icon.
Wesley Snipes rolled in with a swagger that ate the room. Like it was like Wesley Snipes is here and he is like the sun and y'all are just planets orbiting, or like that's how big his presence was. And as Blade, he was just so cool and so awesome. And I've actually like a couple years ago I went and I watched the Blade trilogy. He's awesome in that trilogy. Also hilarious, the whole like, oh, I never liked you like thing.
Yeah.
There's that whole rumor between him and Ryan Reynolds and like they were in that film together. Again, the meta jokes were on par, on point. But yeah, he walked in and it was just like the gravitas of that character and the way he plays that character unmatched. It was insane.
Yeah, he was awesome. And I haven't seen his either. They're all on my eventual rewatch list. I mean, guys, I just had to watch about 12 X-Men movies. So I've been busy. I actually never finished the New Mutants. I'm like halfway through it. I just never got there.
The
I was
first
like,
half is way better than the second half. Let's just put it that way.
really? Because the first half's a little hard for me to get through. So that's good to know.
Yeah, you're going to drop off. It's great.
Okay, awesome. Well, regardless, I had to watch like 12 X-Men movies in preparation for this. So didn't really have time to possibly get to everybody's slight cameo movies. I want to skip over X-23 for a second because I feel like that's a little deeper with like Logan's story as a whole. I want to talk about, to me, the biggest one, which is Mr. Chris Evans, who then gagged us and was Johnny Storm. Now, I know we said that, but like there was a cap shield right before he showed up, like an OG cap shield, not like the round one. And then obviously I know the Fantastic Four suits are blue, guys, but the way it was positioned was so perfect to kind of be like, Cap, and then it wasn't. I was like, oh, shut up. He did not just say what he just said.
Well, it's also hilarious because Johnny's personality is so much more like Chris's actual personality in real life. Like Chris.
So it just felt like Chris Evans was on your screen.
Yeah, literally. Like
Yeah.
Chris and Steve Rogers could not be more different in terms of like who they actually are. So it was so fun to just see Chris like go back to this role that I think he kind of feels like, it was a missed opportunity. Like it was maybe ahead of its time, those films, and like they didn't get the opportunity to really, do those the right way in the way that he got to do Cap later on in the MCU. And so I loved that he got to go do this. I was kind of shocked that they did it because, even in our cameo episode, we talked about this makes more sense during Secret Wars because Secret Wars is so centered on the Fantastic Four. It does make me, like, as excited as I was to see Chris, it makes me a little bit nervous that they're not going to bring him back now for Secret Wars because they've done it already. And I felt like that was maybe a better fit. That being said, I was shocked at how much screen time he got.
Yeah, me too.
But the whole budget joke was hilarious. And yeah, I was surprised at how much he was in it. But I could see how much fun Chris was having doing that. Like, just even in the way he played the character. And so that was just fun to see that he was like back doing something totally different. But he just looked so happy.
Yeah, I didn't place him either when they were like, had him covered, which kind of made me offended for myself because I was like, really? Like, you didn't place Chris Evans. You've listened to him talk since 2010. Like, I'm not really sure why you couldn't place the voice at all, but I thought it was great to bring him back as Johnny. I will say, to your what I had kind of said, and then you also were saying it, because he's so similar to Chris and his actual character, and it's been so long, it was kind of jarring at the same time because I was like, ready for him to be all Cap like, but he also didn't look like Cap. So that was throwing me off. And then when he did his whole flame on, I was like, oh, wait, but now you're playing a character. Like, a part of me was just like, this is just Chris.
Yeah.
Chris is just on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That was a little like hard for me to picture him again as Johnny. It was just very off for me in that way. But I appreciated him being there. And to your point, he was on screen a lot longer than I anticipated. I thought after he fell from the sky the first time, like that was it. And then he was captured with them. Yeah. And I was like, oh, he's like coming with and he's alive. So, okay. But I did love it. It was a little jarring because I really was like, I just can't see you right now as Johnny anymore. Like, I've been so programmed to see you one way. But our last big cameo that we saw, because there's one other that I have a slight complaint about. Happy Hogan, everybody.
Yeah. Is Happy the new like Stan Lee? Like, I feel like between Happy and Wong,
He deserves to be.
he totally does. I mean, he's been there since literally day one.
Yep.
Like, one of the first
He
characters
built
on the
this
screen.
universe.
Yeah. I mean, both directing and acting. I mean, and Happy, like I said, he's between him and Wong, we've got most of the movies covered. I just love him. I love that he's showing up in What If and he's showing up in Deadpool. And it also, like, it took me so long to understand where we were in the timeline when they were having that conversation. Like, I know they gave us a date and it was 2018. And then I was like, but Tony's dead. And it took me a minute to realize that didn't happen until 2023.
Yeah.
And like Infinity War hadn't happened yet. And I was like, oh my God.
Well,
like,
did you catch that they had the picture of him and Tom Spider-Man, but they covered Peter because they couldn't probably put him in the movie because of Sony?
Oh, I didn't even think about why he was covered, but yeah.
As soon as I saw he was covered, I was like, they probably could not put his picture in this movie.
Interesting though, because he does the pew 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 with the spider shooters.
Yeah, but technically you can't copyright that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, no, I didn't think about that, but that I did notice that he was covered, but I didn't think about why. So it's like a call.
Yeah. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, Sony, ruining more things.
Ugh, I know, this whole rights situation. And then like they had the Venom trailer beforehand. I was like, can we please be done with the SSU, please?
Yeah, I know, but I am looking forward to that. I can't say I'm not. But to the last cameo that we didn't fully get. Unmask Blake Lively, everybody. What the crap, Ryan?
I know.
My biggest complaint coming out of this movie was you didn't unmask your wife.
Yeah.
And yes, it's confirmed. It is Blake. First off, also, I could have just confirmed it. I know that voice from Gossip Girl. I can ping Blake Lively anytime, anywhere. It does not matter. I love that woman. And I was like, how dare you not unmask her?
That was annoying, I will say. Because I was like, dude, we all know who's under the mask. Just like give us the confirmation that we all want. Like, even if she's dead and you unmask her, because like they killed them all, right? Well,
then they all came back.
Yeah, but like, what if she like, saw Peter and was so excited she took her mask off?
No, you know what I really wanted? My ideal situation, which Ryan, you and I think enough alike. This is a call out to Ryan Reynolds. So I'm a little sad you didn't put this in like this. At the end, Dogpool comes up to Deadpool. He's all ecstatic. I would have loved for her to come up to the two of them sitting on the bench. Been all like, hey, like flirty, whatever. He's thinking she's hitting on him. She's hitting on Logan. That would have been the ideal situation. And she ends up walking away with Logan. I would have thought that was hilarious because there are so many levels to that, considering they are all such good friends in real life. That would have been so funny to me.
Yeah, I love that. And like the idea of there being, to your point, like so many layers of the onion to unpeel within that one joke would have been incredible. Yeah, that was definitely a bummer.
Well, he made the baby joke, so I was even more offended. I was like, you made the reference.
I know. One other cameo that we do have to talk about, our girl B15. showing up, running the TVA, absolutely a boss.
Love her.
Yes, we will talk about the TVA and the multiverse of it all in a separate episode because that warrants its own episode and analysis, and honestly a little bit of research on our part to make sure that we are analyzing it in the best way, because y'all know how crazy this multiverse gets and how much we have to do to try to understand it. So TBD on that one, but I don't want to forget our girl because she is out here boss babing it and absolutely running the show like the queen she is, and also hitting on Peter like an absolute player, and it was great.
I live for
It was
her.
so good.
I think it was the very last trailer they showed her.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sending it to Tia, or I might have just texted her and been like, B-15 has been confirmed. Like, we're not playing anymore.
Yeah.
And she didn't play a huge role, but to your point, we know she's in charge of the TVA now. And we also kind of know this is post Loki, which
Yeah.
is the first time we've gotten some sort of confirmation of like where things stand specifically with Loki.
Yeah.
Because we know they're no longer pruning. B-15's in charge because Loki is holding the multiverse together, which again will be a whole point I make in the multiverse episode because I got an issue there. But I mean, come on. I live for her, and I'm glad that we have something that connects now to this character plus to the TVA. Loki has been a floating property for 3 years now. And I think it's really nice to finally have something that we can actually be like, okay, here's this character making an appearance in another piece and tying in with things. And she's an icon and we love her anyway. So I appreciated seeing her. Although it also left an open gap of where was our buddy Mobius, who has been rumored to be in this movie since forever and wasn't in it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of questions. We're going to table those for now, but I couldn't let our girl go unrecognized as we were listing out cameos. Let's circle back to one of the bigger ones, which is, of course, X-23, all grown up, Laura. I will say, first thing, before we get into like the nitty gritty and the narrative of it all, when she whipped out those sunglasses, my heart shattered. I was like, she still has them.
And it made up for me the fact that she didn't have a suit.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, we have learned that she was that Logan's universe's X-23. So I'd love to know how she ended up there.
Yeah, like what did she do?
Yeah,
Was it
like
that she was
what
never supposed to
happened?
live? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Or I should say not the Logan we saw, but like Deadpool's Logan, like from the beginning. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Like the literal
Like
Logan
the Logan
movie.
who was starring in the actual film.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, she was in that universe and from Deadpool's universe.
Yeah.
So, I am a little intrigued on how she ended up in the Void, but I was kind of hoping she'd have a suit. Like, I really was. But then she put the sunglasses on. I was like, okay, but icon. I don't care. Like, such a good callback. So, at the same time, and she's like fighting with them on. So, I was like, okay, I can deal without a suit because this is iconic.
Literally. And I also thought, like, obviously I know it's Daphne Keane playing the same character, but like, you never really know. She was like, what, 9 or 10 when she played Laura? Like, she was so young.
Yeah.
And like, now she's probably in her late teens. Yeah. You know, somewhere around there, mid to late teens. You never know how that's going to translate, having a child and then having someone grow up and mature, how that's going to look. But she had the exact same mannerisms, like,
especially fighting.
yeah, the way she growled, like,
Yeah.
everything. I was like, oh my gosh, it's literally like you took little Laura from that movie, aged her in 5 minutes, and was like, let's put her in this movie now. Like she just stepped back into the role as if it hadn't been however many years it's been since Logan. Like, that was so good.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
No, she killed that return. I hope they keep her around.
Me too.
I wouldn't actually even be. Oh my God, wait, we forgot one of the biggest cameos. Henry freaking Cavill, people. Henry freaking Cavill.
I know.
Sorry to interrupt my exact thought, but guys, it got overshadowed by Gambit afterwards, but he was the first one I freaked out about. And I was like, oh my God, it's Henry Cavill. I'm like hitting my boyfriend. And then he was like, how do you know? I was like, I know that muscle anywhere. I was like, that is Henry Cavill.
Because they weren't showing his face, I was like, that's not Hugh. That's not Hugh. And I just knew.
I love Hugh. And I think the end of this movie proved that man, no matter what age he is built as all heck, but he does not have the shoulders the way Henry Cavill has those shoulders.
Agreed.
And I was like, that is not Hugh. That is not Hugh. I know those shoulders. And let me tell you, the callback to the Mission Impossible, like fist pumps when he did the Wolverine claws, I almost passed out. That was like I was like, oh my God. Like, if this man does not actually get casted as Wolverine, like, if this is all we get, I'm going to be so sad because this just proved to me this is it.
Well, that's what I want to ask you. Are we doing another John Krasinski, Reed Richards situation? We talked about this. Like, is that what they're doing to us right now?
Okay, to be fair, I ended up not thinking John Krasinski was best for that role when I saw him.
That's fine. No, don't get me wrong. I literally would die for Pedro Pascal, and the fact that he is Reed Richards is like, I cried when he was cast. Like, truly, I love him. All I'm saying is that was an example of someone very notable being cast and was fan cast, right? Being put in a role that they were fan cast for and expected to take the long haul and then not, regardless of how you feel about how he actually performed. Is that what they're going to do to Cavill? Because I hope that's not a trend. I hope it's not a trend.
I hope that man, well, first off, yes, I agree. I hope it's not a trend. But second, I hope that man in his 30 seconds, not even 15 seconds on the screen, proved he has this role in the bag. Because he turned around and I said, first off, he's got that look. And then when he pulled the claws out, I was like, oh my God, if you take this away from me, I am never going to see the light of day again. Like, I will never be happy because he just did everything he had to do. He put everything into those 15 seconds, and it proved to me immediately that this man can play this role. And he's also built, hello? Look at that man. He is the perfect person to take it on from Hugh Jackman. Don't even argue with me at this point. Like, they did what they had to do, and they put him on that screen for a reason. I really hope it's not a trend, and I'm really hoping that with the fact that he was traveling to different universes and they didn't number any of them, they could easily kind of just slide that in and be like, he ends up being 616, or like whatever universe the mutants end up coming from. Like, super easy.
Or, I mean, honestly, like, they've proven that Wolverine doesn't look the same in every universe now because 80% of them were Hugh. And then they threw in Henry as like a fun little thing. So taking that and also thinking about Pedro and John or Peters of the numerous that we have, like, it doesn't have to be the same actor. So there could be multiple universes where it is Henry, just in the same way there's multiple universes that it's Hughes.
Or now look at the fact that there are now two people who look like Chris Evans, one being Captain America, one being Johnny Storm, fully confirmed to exist.
Yeah. So it doesn't take it off the table, even if that wasn't 616.
Right. Well, that's why I said maybe, because if we're always saying like the mutants might come in from another universe or whatever, like it could easily be another universe and it doesn't have to be explained because they never numbered them and they never said anything about it. So like, they could just be like, oh yeah, remember him actually is from the universe where we're bringing all the mutants in.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of options. It makes me nervous that his cameo was so short.
I know.
Because I'm like, ooh, did you just bring that in for fun and for trolling? Because that is a major fan cast. And then the other thing that went through my head was, all right, well, if we're not going to make him Wolverine, now you've taken him off for like a Cyclops. Like, now he can't really be used.
Or Magneto.
Yeah. Like, I know we just talked about how Johnny Storm and Cap have the same face. Well, that was something that's like a little different. Like, you weren't doing an expanded universe at the time that you cast Chris as Johnny Storm. And then years later, you weren't going to pass on him as Captain America because he was in a movie 10 years before
that nobody knew was going to tie in or not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody could foresee. I mean, maybe Kevin did because he's a genius, but like, nobody could foresee that Disney was going to go buy 21st Century Fox and have the rights to these characters and bring them all together. Like, that was not an option. They have to be more intentional now because it is a connected universe and it is confirmed to be that way. So that's why, like, as much as I enjoyed it and I definitely screamed like a crazy person, I'm a little nervous that either one, that was his only time as Wolverine, and if that is the situation, that now he can't be cast as Cyclops or Magneto or any of the other things that we thought would fit for him. And I'm like, oh, like for 30 seconds? Like,
not even?
Oh, I hope that's not what happened. Yeah, like so it was like great and bad. Like, yes and no.
Yeah, I agree. I have to also quick apologize because I screamed on the pod, guys. So I'm really sorry. I thought I was loud during Gambit, but realizing we almost went right past Henry Cavill's cameo, I panicked and was like, oh my God. Yeah, I'm scared. I am scared. But for the 15 seconds I got for now, I'll take it. And I love that he also did the callback to the Mission Impossible pump arms. That's all.
Iconic.
That's all I have to say about that. Yeah. Otherwise, let's get into the plot. because we could talk about all these cameos for days, and I know that we can. I liked the plot.
Yeah.
It went a direction I wasn't sure where it was going to go, and I really like that it actually stayed more contained than I think we anticipated it might. It was weird because I thought we'd end up in 616, and we didn't. I didn't expect them to actually be successful in winning the universe back and
Yeah.
like saving it. I didn't anticipate that solely because one, as I said, it's a trilogy and most characters lose something in the trilogy, something iconic or like important to them. Hello, your entire universe would be one. But two, we obviously have been being told or directed that this is like a big movie for the MCU now. And not that I was trying to be like, what doors does it all open? But more so like, where is this going to connect in? Obviously, we do see him on 616 at one point. We'll explore this later in a different episode, but didn't expect us to kind of just be like back where we started.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. It kept it more Deadpool-y
Yeah.
than I thought it was going. Not in like tone that I expected. I was like, Ryan's not going to get rid of that part because that's what makes Deadpool Deadpool, and that's what makes it fun, and that's why everybody was having such a good time in my theater. But to your point, I was surprised at how focused it stayed on Deadpool and his people, his mission, his found family. Whereas to your point, in our predictions episode, we really thought this is going to be a gateway. This is him moving into the MCU. And not that he didn't reference the MCU basically like every other line.
He's Marvel Jesus, MJ, if you will.
Oh my God, that I can't. I love him so much. But other than those lines, like I really thought he was gonna, and that little, scene with Happy, I really thought he was gonna explore the multiverse a little bit more than he did. I'm kind of happy he didn't. I think it
too.
kept the plot really focused. And I think, it's interesting. He made a lot of jokes about like, oh, you're joining at a low point in the MCU. And then he had that whole monologue about how bad they're doing with the multiverse plot lines, which isn't incorrect. Like, how many times have we ripped a new one to a multiverse related project?
Or how many times have we tried to blow our own minds because we like can't figure out the multiverse and how it works in the MCU?
TBT to us using markers and an Oreo container to try to explain the sacred circle.
And the irony of that is that was 3 years ago. We could still not explain it.
No.
It's almost more convoluted.
And trust me, when we get to that TVA episode and we talk about the fact that there are entire people who the whole universe revolves around. Like, that's a whole new concept that was never, ever hinted at before that we are going to not explain, but try to analyze in very deep detail. So more to come on that one. But I was pleasantly surprised that even though he was dealing with the multiverse, it didn't hurt my brain as much as I thought it would. Like, it introduced new concepts and it was important to the plot, but at the same time, if you just took that concept at face value, you understood what was going on, and it kept it very, to your point, contained to the point where I could understand what was going on, why it was happening. It didn't feel like Multiverse of Madness where there was just like random crap happening all the time. It was very intentional. And I think that's what they've been missing in a lot of their multiversal projects is like it feels like everyone is random and they don't make sense, not just with the other properties talking about the multiverse, but even within themselves. This one was a very clear line you saw from the beginning to the middle to the end, despite the fact that he was in the void and talking about different universes. It was well explained. It was well intentioned in the sense that they were so focused. And that made it so much more enjoyable because I didn't have a headache by the time I left trying to understand how the heck we got to where we were.
I also think it helps that the TVA and the Void and the multiverse in general were plot points and not the plot.
Yeah.
Because I think even speaking to Loki, which we've both had our issues with different seasons, different parts, whatever. And you brought up MOM, another great example. And granted, that one's a little weirder because that hinged more on the mystical side of the multiverse. And I think that's what made that one just all over the place. But I think it struggles because a lot of these movies are hinging on the multiverse itself as the plot. Or in Loki's case, the TVA and the multiverse as the plot itself, versus they were in this movie, but that wasn't the point. Like, yes, his universe was ending, but we knew from the beginning his universe was going to fall apart. It was getting sped up by somebody in the TVA. And in order to stop that, He tried to go find a Logan to become a new anchor point, which again, as you said, was explained in this movie. And I could be like, okay, I get it. There's clearly a person in all these universes that apparently keeps it going. We'll talk it more to that in a different episode. But then he got a Logan and he was like, the TVA guy was like, nah, sorry, this won't do. This also is the suckiest Logan out there. And they get pruned and put in the void. And then we go through all of that and he's still trying to save his universe. Like the point of what he's doing never changes. And even up until the end, even when Cassandra comes into his universe, he's like, whoa, still trying to save my people and the people in this universe and where I live. And so I do think that helps when it was like, yeah, we're all part of this. Like all these points are in this movie, but I could summarize the movie and it's not like you don't have to know how the whole multiverse works or the TVA works in order to do that. Like even I have to say, you could probably take out watching Loki and maybe you don't really understand the whole TVA thing, but you understand the concepts that were introduced here. You didn't need all the extra things. Also had to appreciate that Deadpool, like us, at one point was like, can you turn off the little screens with all your little squiggly lines? And I was like, no, literally, because how many times have we been like assessing the crap out of a scene because it's behind somebody and we're like, oh no, the lines are going somewhere they're not supposed to. Like I appreciated that little call to us.
Yeah, no, I felt called out when he said that because I was like, literally in that one scene where Paradox is standing in front of the screens, it's the scene where he shows him the shots of the Avengers and like, you know, scenes from all of our MCU movies. Before that, there is the standard TVA monitor that we've seen since Loki season 1, and I was just sitting there staring at it and I was like, I don't understand.
You know to look for it.
Yeah, like what are you trying to tell me? And I was like trying so hard to analyze it, and then I was like, I'm actually missing like important parts of this movie, and it feels like I should listen to what Paradox is saying, but I'm too busy staring at the screen behind him, trying to rectify how that aligns with what I think I understand from the multiverse, which is very little.
Yeah. Well, that's how I felt. And then when he said that, I was like, pull your attention back. That's the point. But we've spent so much time analyzing those screens every time they're there because you have to. How many times have we not in the first Loki season and you go on Twitter or X, whatever the crap you want to call it now, and you're like, oh, somebody's pointing out the screen in the background here look like this. And now here's 9 million theories on why this looks like this. Like it brought you back in and I appreciated that. But yeah, I think the plot itself, making it contained and making it not, I don't want to say otherworldly in the sense of other universes, but like with the multiverse conundrum that's just constantly hurting my brain, it made it so good.
Yeah.
And it helped to me make everything make a lot more sense. Do I understand how he could pull a Logan out of one universe and pull him into his? Not really. Not really. I'm not sure because we aren't really sure what the new TVA rules are, right? We know they're not pruning. We know the multiverse exists, but are they like controlling who travels between the universes? Like that's where that got muddy for me because I was like, hey, he just pulled him right out of that universe.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too deep into this because I know we're going to have a whole
I don't
episode
either,
on
but
it.
That's why I wanted to say it, though. I was like, oh, I don't know. That was a major plot issue or not issue, but point.
I will put out a quick theory and then we can analyze it to the nth degree in our next episode about this. But I will say, I wonder if it's because like his defining moment in that universe has already happened. Like he already let his friends die. Now he's just living a miserable existence where everybody hates him because he turned the whole world against the X-Men and he let the X-Men die. So his whole like gonna change the course of history already happened. So maybe taking him out of that universe doesn't change other than like one less sad, this is gonna sound really depressing, but like one less sad individual in that, you know, in that universe.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, even I think B15 was saying like, don't undo it because all the decisions you made today in this universe was because of what you made in your universe, which maybe could have been why they were like, no, you've done your part here. You're staying. Either way, it worked for me. I like that he stayed. Obviously, like I said, X-23, that was her universe too. So when she was brought back from the void, and I guess I assume everybody else was as well, works for me because now he's got the daughter, she's got the dad. Like everybody's happy and I kind of live for that. But as I'm on this topic, I feel like I can't ignore the early scene of him desecrating Logan's grave and skeleton as he killed numerous TVA agents with it and then wore his claws to continue to kill TVA agents. Like, piece of work. The freaking NSYNC dance when he would just cut
Oh
in and
my
just be doing
god.
that. I couldn't. I was like,
I
this
was
is why I love these
cackling.
movies.
Yeah. I mean, he just gets it. It's so funny and it's so absurd. And like some of the MCU can be funny. We love Ragnarok. We talk about it all the time. But a lot of it is really serious. Like if you think about, especially things like Winter Soldier or even Black Widow, it's about human trafficking. Like it is deep, often dark, very serious topics. And then you get to Deadpool and it's like just totally absurd and out there and fun. And like, honestly, my face hurts from how much I was smiling because I think I didn't stop for 2 hours straight. And that scene just set the tone so early. It was such a good use of music. It was so on brand for Deadpool. It was hilarious. It was crazy. He was trampling literally on the grave of one of the top rated superhero movies of all time while still somehow still honoring the legacy. Like I don't feel like in any way they tarnished the legacy of Logan, yet he literally robbed his grave and desecrated his grave, yet somehow it still honored it. I don't know how they managed to find that balance, but it was perfect.
You knew it was going to be good when he sat there and was like, I said we weren't going to touch Logan. And I lied. And I was like, oh my God. And they showed the grave and I was like, he's only going to find the adamantium skeleton. And then when he's sitting there talking to the skeleton, I'm thinking, this can't get worse. Like he's already like dug the entire grave up. Poor man was there to rest. And then he tore him apart to fight with his body parts. And I was like, dude, I can't with you. And then he made a Gossip Girl reference for the joke too. And I was like, I can't, Ryan. I just need to like meet this man once and get in his brain because I think he's so iconic.
Oh, truly. I will say, when he rolled up to the grave, I was so nervous when he was like, you're not dead. You literally can't die. And I was like, oh my God, please don't do this. Don't do this. Because I just watched Logan last week. I bawled like a baby. Like it was 2 o'clock in the morning and you would have thought my non-existent dog just died. Like I literally was sobbing so hard. I was like, why? I've seen this movie before. Like I knew this was going to happen. And I was a mess. I was like, why is this happening to me? And so he like showed up at the grave and I was like, I just got done crying about this. Do not resurrect him. And then he brought out the skeleton. I was like, thank you. Thank you for going right up to the line, but not crossing it. And that was perfect.
Yeah, and I think it set the tone. Because then when he does find the Logan that we have throughout the movie, I think it's so fitting. Like, I think they work so well together. They're not happy to be together, but they are at like this point, especially once they're sent to the void, it's like, well, we've really only got each other.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else for us to go. You got me into this and you're determined to do this. And even though they have that freaking fight in the minivan, like,
oh my God,
I can't with these two. It's so funny to me that they sit here and because they both can regenerate and not die, they just can absolutely obliterate each other. I think it's absolutely the funniest thing ever. So that was perfect. Then later on, they're taking out a sea of Deadpools. Like, you can't make this crap up.
Oh my God. And when he was going through this series of Logans and he rolls up on the super short one and he goes, look at that comic accurate short king. All I could think about was our fan cast episode where we must have said the words short
king
or the word short king about 50 times when fan casting Logan. I was like, this is a man who one understands the comics, but two understands the internet. And that is the perfect combo.
Well, since you just brought it up, we forgot the Hulk cameo. Oh, that happened. But also the very iconic cover with Logan on the X.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. Like that's some stuff that pays such good homage to things like the comics. That is like when X-Men 97, slight spoiler if you didn't watch it, so I'm going to say something that if you didn't watch the show but you care to not know, I don't know, just turn me down for a second. When they do Magneto pulling Wolverine's skeleton out of his body, and that is a direct shot from the comic covers, that is what that was. And I was like, no, that's beautiful. You don't understand.
Yeah. It's comic book fans making comic book movies. And obviously, we know Kevin's a huge fan. Like, that man has like an encyclopedic knowledge
You
of
also don't do what you do if you're not a fan, man.
Oh, 100%. But I will say, like, Kevin is more willing, not willing, but he plays a lot faster and looser with the comics. Whereas, like, Ryan, I feel like is so good at, like, picking these moments of, like, some of the most iconic shots and just putting them in. And, like, only if you truly know or, like, are a real, I don't want to say real fan, that's degrading to people who are just casual fans. But, like, if you, like, are really into the actual comics themselves and understand, like, what are some of the top comics if you are like an avid comic reader, that those are the moments for you. Casual fans are great, but for comic readers, there were moments in this film, whether it be the costumes or, like you said, that Logan on the X, those were the moments, the deep cuts for the deep fans who are reading the comics. And both kinds of fans are great. And I love that they cater to both of them throughout the film. And I think that's why some of the Deadpool films are some of the really, really strong superhero films in the genre, period, the end. Like, I was rewatching, especially like Deadpool 2. I was rewatching it and I was like, this film is fantastic. Like, I forgot how much I enjoy these films. They're so different from everything else, but there's something about the way Ryan Reynolds understands the character, the genre, and the fans so well that he's able to find this incredible balance that doesn't always come through in any other film, or other films, I should say. Not that all of them miss the mark, because they don't, but Ryan consistently hits the mark, and that's, rare to do.
Yeah, especially when you're on your third movie.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I feel like, you start to kind of have some drop off. I mean, let's be real. I think Cap's trilogy is probably one of the only ones that I'm like, for the most part, those go 3 for 3. Can't really argue against that.
You guys know how I feel about Iron Man 3, so.
Well, but that's what I mean. Like, all the other trilogies that we've really gotten have had weak movies somewhere. And I don't think Deadpool's had any of them.
No.
I don't think any of these have been weak. And to your point, like, I was obviously rewatching them as well. And I was like, I forgot how much I loved these. And I love this character. Like, I genuinely, and my boyfriend's really into Deadpool. I mean, he's a DC guy, loves Batman, but his MCU character is Deadpool. Like, he loves him. And I was sitting there and I was like, no, like, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it just didn't click before because I used to really not be able to do gore at all. So maybe it was partially that. I don't know. But I was sitting there rewatching them and I was like, no, like, I'm here for this. And like, even watching this movie, I was like, I love this because to your point, Ryan just gets it across the board. He gets what the audience wants. And when you play a character who can fourth wall break like that, come on, like, it makes it so much easier to sit there and make dumb references that you can get. Like I said, the Gossip Girl reference to his wife, like, all that crap is hilarious because it's to us.
Yeah.
Like, we get it because we're like, yeah, that's our world every day. Like, we see it. But you made one quick little comment, and I gotta expand for a second because it was my only other complaint of the movie. Costumes. What happened to Wolverine's mask at one point? Because I think it was right after they came out of the bus, and it looked like Wolverine as a whole was like CGI'd into the scene, and he did not look right for a second there, and especially the mask, but like his whole body didn't look right.
Yeah, no, it was the slow-mo shot, right?
Yeah, and I was like, what is happening here?
That was one of the only shots in the whole film because the fight scene between him and Deadpool was like with the music, like overall, I thought the music was great in the film, the use of it.
Yes,
like,
for sure.
We talk all the time about who were the masters of music in the MCU. It's Coogler, it's Watiti in Ragnarok specifically. Like, those guys get how to do it.
Guardians, yeah.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes. Sean Levy, you are now added to the list with those guys. Like, welcome to the club of directors who know how to use music effectively. So yes, I wanted to say that really quick. I loved that fight scene with that music. That was fantastic. But you're right. That was one area where I was like, this looks weird. Like, I don't know why whether it was the slow-mo or what, but it definitely, he did look CGI'd, but he kind of looked a little clay. And I was like,
right?
Why? Like, that should have been a practical,
right?
Like, he should have been in that shot, so
right?
I did notice
That's
that.
Why
and
I was like,
weird.
what is happening with his face?
Yeah.
And I was so upset too because I know this is gonna be minor, but as obviously like an X-Men animated show fan, obviously we always see him with the shoulder pads that come out too, which I think helps stabilize that the mask comes out so far. So when he didn't have them on, he looked a little like wonky because the mask is coming off of his face pretty far, but then like his butt. That's what I was saying when like Hugh doesn't have huge, like he's clearly built, but he doesn't have like huge shoulders. He's not Chris Evans Dorito Cat Prime shape. So like when you don't have the shoulder pads to like balance out the mask, I was like, you look a little funky. Although I love that we finally get the mask, you look a little off.
I didn't notice that. I honestly, overall, when he ripped out the mask, I thought I was going to cry. I was like,
No, it was iconic. It was the moment.
there was just like, it was the icing on a beautifully baked cake. And I was like, I'm going to cry.
Oh, I'm not complaining about the mask. I just will say, like, you could tell the proportions felt a little off on his body because the mask is wide. Like, it's not just like how Deadpool's is like a face mask. Like, his comes off and has the wings on it. I know they're not wings, but you know, and I just was like, see, this is where he kind of needed the shoulder pads. Like, he kind of needed these on the suit just to like help with that a little bit. And I think maybe that's why then when that slow-mo scene came up, he looked more wonky to me because I was like, the mask was already kind of just overshadowing his body. And then it was like, oh, now we look weird. But I was so happy we got it. And he looked fine later on. Like, even when he was wearing it the whole scene, as they were saving his universe and like pulling the two streams together and everything, I was like, no, he looks amazing. And you could tell that's practical.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like there was a point in the Deadpool fight with all the extra Deadpools that they didn't go practical with the mask. And that's kind of what happened. I don't know. But that was the only thing that kind of brought me out for a second was I was like, what are we doing here?
No, I did notice that. And I thought Deadpool looked fine.
Yeah,
like,
so
I
did
thought
I.
Ryan looked fine in this shot. And then I was like, no, Hugh looks a little funky. So yeah, I definitely noticed that. But I thought overall, other than that, like the effects look really good. And so I was like, okay, great. Like overall, like 99% on the effects for this film. I do think we're getting to a place where we have hit the high points of our general reactions. Like we mentioned, we're going to break out some of the more like in-depth analysis in future episodes, and Katie's going to break out what our next episode is because we are going to take a tiny break from Deadpool because it's not just Deadpool and Wolverine weekend, it's also SDCC weekend. So there's a lot going on in the Marvel universe. We're covering it all. Katie will dive into that in a second. But make sure that you are following on your podcast platform of choice so that you can continue with our Deadpool and Wolverine coverage. You're following along as we break down all of the stuff coming out of SDCC this weekend. And check out the website and all that good stuff. It is the central hub. It's got the blog. We're going to have lots of good info on there. So those are your two things. Follow the pod if you aren't already, and make sure you are checking out the website regularly.
You can also give us a follow on our socials, which are down the show notes below. And pretty much just search us if you want Sisters Assembled. We should come up on most platforms. And as Taylor kind of was already saying, we are going to take a break. We'll do SDCC coverage in our next episode because they're back in Hall H. There's going to be a lot of big announcements. So we're really excited for whatever comes out. And then we will go back to Deadpool and Wolverine. We'll do some deep dives regarding the multiverse, the future of certain characters, and all sorts of things. And anything else that comes up, we will be covering it. So do not worry. This is not all for Deadpool and Wolverine. Just a small little break for SDCC. So with that being said, we've enjoyed this movie and we hope you guys are enjoying listening to us talk about it, and also whatever's going to come next you're going to enjoy listening to. So make sure you guys are keeping up with us and keeping up with Marvel, as Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.